Hello and good morning, and welcome to the IT Hour by JumpCloud. Alexa, welcome back. It's great to see you. How are you this
Thank
morning?
you. I am doing well. It's good to be back. Missed everyone last week, but glad it was a good episode. Got back from Maine on Monday. Had a great time in Portland. But obviously love starting my Friday with all of you.
Yeah, no, this is a great way to start the Friday. I have
Oh yeah.
never been to Maine. It's one of I think I'm down to three states that I have not been to. It's
Wow.
New Hampshire, Maine, and Alaska that I have not been to.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking
It
forward to getting up there. I hear it's
It
beautiful.
was quite beautiful. The weather was perfect. It's definitely cooler than South Carolina, which was awesome. Got to whip out some of my fall sweaters, which was super fun for, a Southern girl in September. But yeah, just gorgeous. So 10 out of 10 recommend.
Fantastic. And I see Rob Lyons has checked in from the chat. He spent the whole morning knee deep in a snake pit. He says, actually, setting up multipath iSCSI shares for Proxmox. And oh, no, Rob, that sounds dangerous. That is definitely snakes. I believe Sala from Raiders of the Lost Ark says asps. Very dangerous. You go first. So I'm glad you've taken a break with us this morning. We're excited to be here. I want to also introduce our other guest, Michelle McGough, my colleague and partner on the Windows side of the house, principal product manager for our Windows operation. She's going to be joining us for some fun product updates right after we cover our community update. So.
Yeah.
Becky will be back next week. She's on vacation again this week. Good for her. We miss you, Becky. Come back safe and sound. But other than that, Alexa, you want to tell us what's going on?
Yeah. So in the meetups world, not much new to report. We are just mapping out the Q4 schedule. So we've got kind of the usual suspects, as I'll call them, with DC and Chicago. And then we are still pursuing, some new areas. Have a conversation with our head of sales in Australia next week to set up that group, which is super exciting. And then I think I've teased we are also still pursuing our first Tel Aviv meetup, which will be super exciting. We've got a growing and local group there. So we're looking to do that hopefully the end of November. So really exciting things to come. And in addition to, those usual suspects, I am also hoping to re-engage some of our quieter groups. So I know Kelly is usually on the call and Steve. So we're hoping to venture out west and get the Seattle group up and going again. Lots of exciting things to come in Q4. And then even starting to look forward to 2023, which seems crazy, but we are super excited to do some new things. We'll be approaching the 1-year anniversary of not only, the meetups program, but also the community, which is amazing. So I am sure we're going to do some very fun things, maybe some giveaways, prizes. I know Becky has a lot in store as well. So yeah, looking forward to a lot of good stuff. Stay tuned. As always, we'll drop some links in the chat. I'll go ahead and drop this is the Meetup Network. And then on Becky's behalf, I will, of course, drop the link to the community. And then hopefully you're all part of the Slack Lounge, but if not, I will also drop that link. Both the community and Slack Lounge are great resources to, chat with your peers, chat with JumpCloud team. If you have any questions, people are really amazing at giving advice, sharing scripts, all that good stuff. So make sure you check it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alexa. And, there's the community is such a great feature for us. We've got so many different admins producing such cool stuff in the community. There are people who have written whole commands and structures for installing new pieces of software and writing instructions on how to do that. So it's a great way to help your colleagues, help your friends, help your other JumpCloud customers, and really kind of come together there to really make this a good future for you.
Totally.
So, I was going to say, jump into the community, take a look at what's there. I saw a post from one of my other product colleagues there on how to use the JumpCloud patch policies for custom notifications. And so Scott Reed has a really great post in there on how that all operates. I've got a post going live a little bit later today about something I'm about to talk about in the product news. So
yeah,
all sorts of good stuff.
Becky will be so pleased though. Before she went out on vacation, she was like, monitor the chats, the community, and make sure that you're getting answers. And things have been super self-sufficient. I haven't really had to go and ask anyone to jump in, which is a great sign. People are. It's almost at running on its own. So it's really awesome to see.
Yeah, it's so nice to see JumpCloud admins helping each other. And it's so great to kind of see that collegiality develop in our community. So if you haven't checked it out, if you've got a burning question for some of your colleagues out there, and maybe you don't want to ask your account manager, which is totally fine. They're nice people, but they're, a little salesy, not going to lie. But it's a great place to go get feedback from your peers, from colleagues, and talk about things out in the open. Because I feel like that open knowledge sharing experience of being in IT is so crucial. And especially if maybe you're Rob and you've got, multipath iSCSI shares giving you grief, that could be a great place to ask questions of the community. Hey, have you ever set up a multipath iSCSI share for your server before? This would be a great opportunity to kind of use the depth and breadth of the JumpCloud community. So
definitely.
Well, we've got a couple pieces of product news here I did want to bring up with everybody. JumpCloud now supports the concept of the commands queue. We talked before a few months ago about commands going to a 10-day time to live. But what happens when you set those commands to run? Before, you couldn't even see what was going on behind the scenes. Now you can go to the JumpCloud commands queue and see all of your commands in their pending status. If you've got a command assigned to 100 machines, you can see how many of your systems have actually put that out there. You can also see at that point the results from individual systems that have already come back and said, yep, that was good. Maybe I'm still running. Also the case where maybe the command failed out with an error code. That means you might want to take a look at that machine and address a problem on that individual device. So we're very excited that this has come to JumpCloud. It's part of our ongoing effort to make the commands experience new, better, different, and more powerful based on JumpCloud. So I'm going to pull open my screen and share what this looks like, which is super exciting. So we're going to do a little bit of JumpCloud Live here. So let's see. All right, that's the admin portal, and we're going to share that. So here on the admin portal, you can see in the commands section, I now have a tab up at the top that says queued. And I can see, hey, oh, awesome. There is a command here, get extensions. 3 of the systems are pending, but 1 is completed. And so here I could log in and see, oh, there's my completed system. I got a couple machines that have been offline for a little bit. So maybe those aren't the best machines to run this command on anymore. So I can just unqueue those commands here. And now the command's been removed from their queue. So when those systems check back in, they won't pull this command down and run it. I can look directly at the results here for an environment. Really, in this command, I'm just saying, hey, show me the kernel extensions that are loaded on this system, but also don't show me the Apple ones because those are ones that I think are good. And so you can see here, no variant specified, falling back to release. All is good for this particular machine. No kernel extensions on this one. And we'll just have to wait until this one checks back in here. So the local virtual machine will check back in as soon as it's done. And yeah, I was going to say it's great. You can take a look at these commands. You can filter all of these commands by operating system so that if you want to say just look at Linux or Windows commands instead of those filthy Mac OS commands, you can do that. That's an option that you've got available to you here. In addition, you can sort by operating system, sort by numbers of systems assigned, as well as by the number of commands that are still pending in your environment. So very exciting. We're super thrilled. You can use this today. So this came out the end of last week and is all out there, which is tremendous. So, and with that, I will drop my screen share and we'll talk about the one other feature that's out now. The other feature that's out now is delegated auth for radius communications. So if your network, if you really want to delegate that authentication for your Wi-Fi network up to, say, Microsoft, and say, I want Azure AD and the Microsoft Authenticator push alerts to happen when I join a Wi-Fi network. That is something that you can definitely do now using JumpCloud. So we will round trip that authentication through Azure and then handle the cloud radius side of things for you. So without having to set up an NPS server in the cloud or set up an Azure AD service to handle these kind of things, you can now do delegated authentication for your Wi-Fi network directly to Azure AD and back. It's all part of JumpCloud's mission to be your open directory platform, to be the organization that's going to help you through that process, where we can take identity and authentication from one source and pipe it out to another, and then bring it back again and get you the resources that you need, as well as the approvals that you need, not to mention all of that rich directory insights information that's part of the JumpCloud platform as a whole. So super excited. If you want to learn more about that, we'll have some links in the chat. I will go and find you exactly what you need, and we'll do that. But that is the product news for this week. But
Awesome.
We've got a great guest with us this week. Michelle McGough, welcome to the IT Hour. I'm so glad you're here with us today.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be here.
And you're here to talk to us today about something near and dear to all of our hearts, which are custom registry policies.
Yes, sure am. So if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll just get right into it.
Fantastic.
All right. Okay, so the new feature that we have, I'm just going to go straight to the punchline and then we'll get into some details, is that you've always been able to create a registry policy with JumpCloud of whatever registry entries that you want, but now you can create multiples of those. So previously we had a limitation. That limitation's been removed. You can create as many of these as you want, so I'm going to get into it. The registry, for anybody who hasn't, gotten their hands dirty in there yet, this is a database containing a lot of the low-level settings and the configurations for a Windows workstation or a server. I would say maybe some of the similarities in a Mac might be, configuration file, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can edit the registry. It is a database, so it's not necessarily meant to be edited directly, but for IT admins, this is something that we do on a pretty frequent basis. Should you? It depends. If you're trying to configure software, if you're trying to configure a setting, sometimes Microsoft, sometimes your ISV for software will have a specific way that they want you to go through and make those changes. And if your vendor gives you an option, you probably want to follow it. It's probably going to be easier. But in the case that you need to just get right in there under the hood and start making those changes yourself, you can definitely do that. If you want to do it by policy, this is what we're going to talk about now. Before we get into it real deep, if you're new to the registry, there are different hives or branches depending on when you learned your admin 101. I'm one of those folks that got the NCSE a long time ago, and back then we called them hives. The different hives are sections or areas that are fairly well logically organized. So the classes root is where you'd have things like file extensions, object link embedding, shortcuts, those types of things. And there's a green check here because this is an area that you can pretty easily edit. So if you wanted to play a little joke on somebody, you could map, like, say, .doc to some other application like the calculator, and suddenly their docs aren't going to open properly. It's not very nice, but it's a really quick example of the power of what you can do in the registry and make changes almost instantly. And a deep admin is probably already thinking about, okay, well, if I want my default calendar to open a certain way, maybe there are ways that I can do that in the registry that might be easier than talking a user through the user interface. You're thinking in the right way. The current user is the current user settings, the person that's logged on right now if there is a session. This is not recommended to edit directly because this setting these are in use, and any changes that you make here aren't going to carry over to any other users. So your likelihood of success is going to require some odds that are kind of against you. Someone has to be logged on. It has to be the right person. I generally don't recommend editing there. The local machine, hardware, and security keys are editable but not recommended. The software and system settings, you're going to be editing all the time if you're a Windows admin. The HK users, that's a catalog of all the users, and it also includes the default and the admin. So if you wanted to make a change for a user that hasn't logged onto the system yet, hasn't even been created, that's a place where you can put things that would then be applied to subsequent users. So very powerful. The current config is the net effect of all the settings that are in use right now. It's temporary. If you edit that, it's not going to reload when you restart Windows. So you're going to want to go back up and hit the locations with the green checks. And I can share this deck if this is something folks are interested in. If there's a place we can put that, Tom, you can let me know. And then just getting into the last one, the dynamic data, that points at the plug and play part of the local machine, and it changes when you add devices. So this is dynamic. It's something that you wouldn't really be able to edit. It would be modified as devices are added and removed. If you wanted to modify the behavior of what happens when devices are added and removed, that's either going to be your class's root for file associations and extensions and embedding, or it's going to be in the local machine system settings. So it's not important to really remember all of these, but just to give a general idea that there is an organization to this. If it's the first time looking at it, it can be overwhelming. It's just a little ugly, but it's not that complicated. Okay. Another little brief 101, I'll keep this very quick. When you're editing custom registry keys, you're going to be asked to supply a string that has the path to the key. You're going to have to supply a type of data, a value name, and then the actual data that you want to set. So all that means is if there's a key that you want to modify, you can get the path. Think of these like folders. You would get a path with backslashes, just like a regular path string. Each of these folders is a key, and then if there's a key inside of it, that's a subkey. When you get to the place where you want to edit in this right-hand pane, these are the value names. So if I wanted to change the log output eRecord, I would supply that value name. The value type here this is a D word in this case, which is a 4-byte response. There's also a keyword, which is 8 bytes. And then you have your value. There are also string values, numeric values, and readable strings, which are expanded strings. So it's not important to remember all the types, but it is important that you want to match, when you're creating a policy, you want to match that type so that you get the accurate result.
So in systems like this, Michelle, in places where you've got preference or keys that you're going to want to set, as well as the values and value types and values, what are the kind of things that can go into those settings?
Yeah. So let's go to that. What are the use cases? So things like managing the browser settings. I could have a key that would map all the way down to a value that gives me a binary, yes, no, do we enable or disable incognito mode? We can use this to improve multimedia performance. So we can do things like modify the binary value of the GPU priority.
Wow.
Do we want it to have 80%? Do we want it to have 10%? There's a default setting that comes in Windows, and folks that are into Windows 11 as an Xbox, probably, if you're an enthusiast, you've probably thought about going in and modifying this, or maybe you already have done it. So these are the types of things you can do. Recapture your CPU cycles, disable 3D objects. Probably not going to do that on your Xbox, on your Windows 11 home, but certainly something that you could do in a computer that's used to maybe hash checksums or do some type of cryptography. You wouldn't really want GPU to be higher priority there. You can do things like improve the user experience. Maybe I want to disable Bing from the start menu search so that when someone clicks the start menu and hits the search bar, they're going to get the results of things on their device instead of just like whatever random internet result pops up. So, depending on the type of experience you want, you can set this. You can probably do some of these things like improve the user experience with some other menu options, other navigational modes in Windows, but then you'd be expecting your end users to do it. So if you want to do it for them, you can go straight to it with a registry modification.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, what if we put all those things into a single policy? Because this is what we used to have to do. You'd have one giant custom registry policy and you put all the things in it. And if you have done this before, it's difficult to manage. It's a lot of lines to look at. It's not necessarily, readable in some cases. And every time you modify it, you're putting all those other settings at risk, when you're pulling and putting back. So we really want to have individual registry policies for each of these if that was something that we wanted to offer to our users. instead of that one large complicated settings policy. So if you're a Windows admin with one of those big, large policies, you now can modify that and break that out as you see fit. And I want to tell you there's something coming very soon, which will be an added field that will allow you to put in, what is that policy for? So if the name isn't specific enough, you'll be able to add another pretty long string of information about it. So I'm going to keep grooving here and say thank you to admins like you who gave us feedback and said, hey, I really don't want to have that big complicated policy. Thank you. Once we got that feedback, we're self-aware and able to fix that. So here's how you create a custom registry policy. I'll keep this really brief. In the admin console, you'll navigate into device management, policy management, click the plus, and then under the Windows area, you're going to find a template near the top called Advanced Custom Registry Keys. If you click Configure, that's going to give you the ability to edit that and create the policy. Now, I'm showing you the more complicated part to fill out, which is the registry key location, which is that string, the value name, and I'll show you an example of these in a second, the value name, the type, and then the data that you fill in. At the top of this, because this is the default view when you hit configure, if you scroll up a little bit, that's where you're going to put the name. If you don't put a name, you're going to get something called custom registry policy. You can change it. But if you want to save yourself the extra step, don't forget to give it a name first when you populate it. Oh, Christian, don't do this at Best Buy. That's not nice. It is funny though. How to create a custom registry policy. This would be your example of a string. Okay, this one is enabling Hibernate, by the way. Then we've got our value name. We've got the type, which is a D word. Actually, this is disabling it. And then this is a hex value for off, essentially. So this would be the 4 things that you would select to fill out that key. And the string is, we're just seeing a small amount of it, but that's what that looks like. And then there's an example of the current control set control power settings, Hibernate enabled. This is also disabled. So this is just an example of one if you're going to create a custom policy to modify Hibernate. And are there other ways to modify the registry besides a policy? Absolutely. Manually, you can go right into regedit and edit away. You can do it remotely with a JumpCloud command. You can do that with a .reg file and install it using regedit. You can also use a diff or a setup capture and create an executable file that will apply those settings. And you can also use PowerShell. And probably your method is going to involve either your comfort of modifying the registry or the frequency with which you want it to happen. If you want it to happen once, you don't need it to happen again. Maybe that's not a policy. That's better used to a command. And lastly, when would we not want to use a JumpCloud policy to modify the registry? I'm going to start with one that's not on this screen, and that is when you're testing. Test first. Use a JumpCloud command. You can use a .reg to set the registry, and then you can do another one that just undoes it. So you can just go back and forth and just toggle back and forth until you are comfortable with the result that you're getting, and then put that into a policy. The other time is if you are using what's called the run once. One of my favorite keys as a Windows admin is the run once and the run. The run key is something that whenever, if it's a local machine, it's whenever the system starts up, it's going to run every time. And in the current user, it's whenever that user logs on, it will run every time. This is a good example of when to use a policy. Do this thing every time that user logs on, or run this thing every time the system starts. Great example. But if you only want it to do it one time, a policy isn't suited for that. So the run once key is do it once and then erase that key. Don't do it again. This is something that for the current user or the local machine, you would just do the one time with a command. And then after it's executed, you don't really need it anymore. So just maybe one of those really common use cases that if we get into a good habit of using these keys, we just want to make sure we don't use that policy for run once. So that's the net of it. I can take any questions, or I can just pass it back to you as you see fit.
This is awesome. So, one of the challenges on the macOS side of the line, right, was with those unwieldy policies. And you could make a custom MDM policy that had, 50 items in it. And you could apply it to a system. But then the second you want to change one of those system settings, you got to make a change to it. It pulls the old profile off. You put the new one on. Super disruptive, right? So that's the value of more granular policies like this, right?
Yes. They're definitely fine-tuned policies. I would say this sounds a little violent, but it's the only thing that's coming to mind, and I apologize. But like this is a scalpel, not a machete.
Right. Yep. And so one of the other things that I love to think about is kind of recoverability in the event that you're testing policies like this. The registry is, if you break it, you own both halves, I think is probably the best way to put it. In a lot of cases, the registry is can be a little bit fragile. Do you have any good strategies for how you test keys like this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So when I test, I use a .reg file that has the setting that is my hypothesis is the setting that I want.
Yep.
And then I have another setting that is basically the reverse of that, undo the change that I'm making. And if I'm on the device, if I'm right on my test system with the console, right in the desktop, I would double click the .reg that does it, that makes the change. Then I'll go run my test to validate that my hypothesis worked. And then I'm going to run that .reg again, the other .reg, the undo. I create like a do and an undo. I run the undo.reg to undo that test. That way, if something goes sideways, I can bring back the state exactly the way that I want. It's so simple to create. And these files, the .reg file, is really just a text file with a .reg extension. So you don't need a special editor or any expensive tools or anything to make them.
And so making those, it's really just a text file at that point.
Essentially, yeah.
Awesome. Where can folks learn more about what the registry is capable of?
Oh, well, the registry's been around for such a long time. We saw a little bit of it in NT 351. There was a little bit, because back then it was still INI files. And then in NT 4, it was a full transformation into that. So this was, we're talking late 90s. So okay. This is a mature database that's running that, all of those settings and managing them. So really, you could look pretty much anywhere on the internet and you're going to find some explanations. And it starts with those, 5-6 hives. The most recent one, the dynamic data, that's the newest one, and it's still pretty old. So you're going to be able to get information on all of those hives and how to create the settings. And also the internet is full of .reg files. I would say when you download those, you want to right click and edit them. You do not want to run them.
Yeah, ASPs, very dangerous. You go first, right? Caution is advised when downloading random files from the internet that can do bad things to your computer.
Don't trust until you verify. That's right.
There you go. Yeah, I was gonna say, it always comes back to Doverier, no Proverier. So there is the trust but verify model there. Michelle, thank you so much for sharing all of this awesome knowledge to us. This is so exciting to see JumpCloud kind of embrace a more granular mode of dealing with registry keys.
Well, it's something you have to do as a Windows admin.
Yep, that's exactly right. I hope you'll stick around and join us. We got some IT news to talk about. If anybody wants to add questions in the chat about either the stories that we're about to talk about or talking about the Windows registry, we're happy to bound in there, and there's all sorts of incredible things that you can do with your registry keys. So, especially since the registry, as we just realized, is old enough to rent a car. So,
and vote, yes.
And vote, yeah. Not to mention drink. But
oh boy,
the registry used to make me want to drink, but I'm just not anymore. So.
I'm sure you're not alone.
Yeah. So one of the first pieces of IT news that I wanted to bring up this week is that our friends at Cloudflare have announced what they're calling the very first Zero Trust SIM. The idea of an eSIM or a hardware SIM that you could use in corporate environments to move corporate data around a secured network that on devices you don't necessarily control entirely. This was a really, really fascinating story. I think there's a lot to like in this environment, especially since it supports eSIMs. Since brand new phones don't have SIM slots anymore. The new iPhones 14 do not have a hardware SIM card any longer. It's all eSIM or go home. Although I'm actually a little excited about that. I'm traveling next week. I'm going to be out of the country. And I found an eSIM provider in Spain that I can buy the SIM from now for $20. That's way cheaper than spending $10 a day on a T-Mobile pass or something along those lines for full speed data. So there are a lot of really good things there. The idea of being able to take that and apply that to corporate environments and to treat this as a zero trust networking kind of situation is really exciting. So some really good things there, and then of course we get some Windows 11 news. The Register had a really interesting story about about new phishing protection in Windows 11. That was really kind of exciting because that's the thing that we get scared of, right? Is phishing. Generally speaking, we saw it. Apple is bringing to marketplace with passkeys as a good way to prevent phishing because you can't use those keys cross domain, and when there's no password to hack. There's no password to hack. So, Michelle, you want to take us? Can you talk to us a little bit about what Microsoft is doing in 22H2 with Defender Smart Screen?
Yeah, so what it does is it's not just watching the device and what might be coming into it. It's watching what's going on. So it's looking at, not just what is going out, but it notices if there's a password. So, here's your password field. Right, I'm crushing it like a grape. The password field, you put that in, and then when you want to send that, Windows is going to check to see, is this domain, is this site sketchy? Is it malicious? Is it known, or does it have some attributes that make it seem a little sketch? And then it warns you, hey, are you sure you want to put this password in? So it basically inserts messaging before, and you have to double send that password before it will go through to the site. So it's like a sanity check. Are you really sure? So the important thing here is in the security program, if you have one, you really want to educate users to, and it's hard because there's so much messaging. You want to educate users to read that message because it's very, very easy to just click twice. So that tool, it gives you just a little more time. It introduces a little more space into a phishing scenario to back out of it, but it still is all on the human to take advantage of that opportunity. Microsoft's opening the door, but we got to walk through it. So
that's exactly right.
So, but I think it's really great. I think it's innovative, and they're doing it without, taking up a lot of bandwidth or CPU. So they're doing it in a really efficient way.
Awesome. And then, of course, we've got a little bit of an interesting situation with, Windows 11 update that's crashing PCs with the blue screen. Can you tell us a little bit more about what we're seeing here?
So we're seeing this on Windows 11. We're seeing it primarily in the issues are primarily around performance. So it's not necessarily giving everybody a blue screen. But if you bought Windows 11 to have it be an Xbox or to do anything else that's processor intensive, you're probably going to notice at least a significant slowdown with that patch. If you get a blue screen, it's going to be, boot to safe mode time and recover, basically. There is a workaround, but only if you get in front of it. So if your patching window is long, if you've got some time, you can wait for Microsoft to fix this. They are going to fix it pretty quickly. It's impacting so many customers. So there will be an updated release, and at that point, there won't be anything to worry about. But if you have to update devices now, you're going to want to apply an update that is not required, but it would be recommended for Intel CPUs. And that's an update. You'll have to go, there's an article there that has explanation on how to go and add that. It is a manual effort in that fix. So I think it would be scriptable. That might be interesting to see if anybody has scripted it yet and want to share it. But the solution that's in the article is a manual solve. So once you apply that update to the driver for your Intel chip, at that point you can then apply this broken patch and it'll be okay. You won't blue screen or have performance issues. So it's a lot to take in. The article lays it all out in a pretty cohesive manner, but you give yourself a few minutes to understand what it's suggesting. And that's Windows 11. So Windows 10.
And I was just going to say, if you haven't made that leap yet, you're still safe. And I was going to say, with JumpCloud's patch policies, you could at that point give yourself a little bit of time. And so moving machines from the early adoption ring to the GA ring, or the GA ring to the late adoption ring, is a great way to kind of bolster your reliability in a moment that maybe you might need it, especially while you can reinterpret what's happening with a given set of updates. Up next, the Linux kernel, Linux kernel 6.0 debuts next week, according to Linus Torvalds. There had been a lot of concern around the delays of 6.0, but here they are at RC7 on the way to RC8. And they're hoping to have a Linux kernel 6.0 release in just a couple of weeks. So for our Linux using audience, that gives you all sorts of new features associated with Linux 6.0, which is support for RISC-V processors, as well as Intel's Gaudi accelerators, as well as work to improve SMB3 performance for systems that are using Samba for I/O to external services. So lots of things to like in that new kernel. And then obviously from there, we go outward into the different releases from there. Jürgen Clausen, a friend of Michelle and I, has a really awesome piece up on his LinkedIn on how to make use of attack surface reduction rules by using PowerShell and JumpCloud. There's a lot to like in here. Attack surface reduction is obviously, it does what it says on the tin, right? You're making yourself just a little bit harder to attack. As a smaller business, this is a great place where, you can just be a little bit more secure than your neighbors. It's like going on the walk, you go on a walk through the woods with your friend and you come across a bear. You don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than your friends. So the idea here is that you use JumpCloud as a method of reducing your attack surface to be a smaller target in the event that somebody comes after you like that. So I think that there is, a lot to like there. Jürgen's techniques are really, really interesting because they're, mostly focused on PowerShell commands that can be delivered with the JumpCloud commands environment. And so, there are a lot of good rules in there that can be deployed across your enterprise to make your environment more secure. And as Alexa mentioned, he also did post this up in the community. So go take a look in the JumpCloud community there and maybe track some of the other settings that are associated with that. And then this last one, oh man, I have had such a week. My phone has just been exploding with spam text messages, whether they are like solicitations from, local business or random. There's a weird kind of SMS phishing attack almost that's going around where somebody pretends to be talking to someone else that's not you. And you just send them back, hey, sorry, wrong number. And then they try to engage you in conversation and get access to your crypto wallets. I don't think this has ever worked in the history of forever, but that has not stopped them from trying. And so the Federal Communications Commission has it has a long delayed step in I'm having trouble with the words today. They've taken a step against the spam text surge that we've seen over the last couple of months, and there are some things that they're working on here to kind of make this better. Obviously, this moves at the speed of the federal government, which means there's an open comment period and lobbyists are involved and other things that are happening, but at least the process has started. Maybe there's an end to all of the spam texts I get. It's gotten really bad. I can count on it now. If I get a green message, it's not for me.
I'm glad you brought this up because I feel like I've gotten so many spam texts recently and I did not know what was going on. But yeah, it's the green text and I'm always like, I know what you're doing.
I see you.
I see you.
I know what you're doing.
Not today.
My favorite though has been starting to like, because it's a real person on the other end of the line in some of those like cases where you end up with the cryptocurrencies extended warranty situation. My favorite though has been starting to respond like you're the secret agent and they're your contact.
Oh.
Hey, did you get the drop? You know, did you open the package? Have you combined elements 2 and 3? Okay, it's been 10 minutes since you combined elements 2 and 3. Maybe you should be running right now. You know, or, you know, you're figuring out ways to, you know, really just kind of turn it into a joke and have a good time with it.
You can definitely turn the tables on them.
I mean, at least waste their time just a little bit because the
Yes.
time they spend responding to you, a smart person who understands that this is not real, is time that they cannot be engaging with someone who is smart or who isn't quite as savvy and might get tricked into giving up banking information or a credit card number or any number, or clicking on a link that might ask for those things.
Totally.
So it is fair game to scam the scammers, my friends.
All right. Heard it here first. Mess with them.
I was going to say moral imperative. Is it a moral imperative to me? No, it's no, definitely not. I'm not going to make ethical judgments. This is the IT hour. We're here to talk about IT stuff. Although I will say that, you know, I do have a talk coming next week that I'm giving that's all about how Everything Everywhere All at Once is the world's best IT movie. So,
I haven't seen it yet. I want to. I know. I need to.
It's so good. It is so good. I have seen it half a dozen times now, twice on the big screen. It is a deeply moving movie that's about how people interact with each other and about how you deal with stress and how you deal with systems that you can't control and how you deal with environments that maybe you're powerless over.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, I was going to say, it really resonates from the IT practitioner's perspective. I cannot control what Microsoft or Apple do. I can control how I respond to it. So
that's awesome. Well, I know what I'm doing this weekend.
Please, it's a great movie. I cannot wait for your review.
All right. Yeah. Next week.
Awesome. Do we have anything else to wrap up with today, Alexa, or are we thinking we're about there?
I think we're about there. I was looking at some comments coming in. Looks like you and Rob are on the same page about we're trying to reach you about your cryptocurrencies extended warranty.
I stole the line right from Rob. Sorry,
okay,
Rob.
okay.
I took your line.
It takes a big man to admit that. So good for you. Let's see. Rob, my phone was on the couch and one of those calls came in through while one of my rats was lying on the phone. According to the call log, the spammer spent a solid 6 minutes talking to my rat's tummy. Oh my gosh, that's very good.
I love that.
I like it even more that it's the rat that was wasting his time, not even a human.
And we, you know, I was going to say anything that we can do, you know, sometimes I might put Charlie on the phone with these folks. That might be fun.
I think so. Let's do some social experiments.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think that does wrap us up unless anyone else has any questions or comments. If not, we'll be here same time next week. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today. Tom, thank you as always. And yeah, we'll be posting the show notes in the community. So if you're looking for any of the links or want to, you know, watch this episode back, be sure to check it out. But again, thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a great and safe weekend.
Yes. And for all of our folks in Florida, you're in our thoughts. You know, Hurricane Ian, definitely very serious storm. I'm still waiting to hear from a couple of friends who are down that way. I'm pretty sure they're safe, but probably no power. Yeah. So, you know, our thoughts are with you guys all. And then for everyone this weekend who will be affected by the additional rainfall. So safe travels, everyone. We're pulling for you. And thanks, everybody, for another great week of the IT Hour hosted by JumpCloud. And thanks, and we'll see you next time.